sure that I actually went live because sometimes that happens. I look live. This seems fine. Yes. Okay, good. Good morning, stream. Welcome to this lovely, at least in my time zone, it's sunny. How about you, Lauren? Is it sunny where you are?
I'm in Seattle, so it is working on it.
Okay, yeah.
It's, there is a sun
Somewhere, yeah.
somewhere.
We can
Somewhere.
believe
Yeah.
that, yeah. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar, this is Brunches and Dragons. This seed of an idea came from two places. One, Bard and Barbarian. If you don't follow them, you should. They do some amazing content. They have done some Saturday morning cartoons. It's basically a one on one storytelling thing that they do. I do the same sort of thing, just a little bit differently. And then the other reason I started doing this is I'm autistic and I'm not good at improv. And when I'm running my games and my players have backed me into a corner and I have to make up an NPC or a non-player character on the spot, those are the ones they love the most. And in fact, one of my players' character has a crush and is going on a date with one of the NPCs I made up on the spot. So his excuse is that he's my husband, and so he's allowed to flirt with the NPCs because they're basically me, which I totally, it's fine, yeah. So this terrifies me as somebody that's not good at improv, and so I decided I needed to practice. So what I do with Brunches and Dragons is I ask my lovely players, I have one person come on board, and I ask them to create a character that I don't look at until the morning of the stream. So I just got to look at Kelbar. I think there's some exciting things in there, and I'm very excited about this. So my goal is to make up a story based on what Lauren's going to tell me about Kelbar today. Now, a little bit about Lauren. So I've been following Lauren on Twitter for a while. I think she's very cool. And then one year at PAX, I think it was at PAX West, I'm not entirely sure because that year was long and I went to all of them. I saw Lauren talking to somebody else I knew, and I introduced myself and I was super nervous and she was really nice about it. Continue to follow her on Twitter, and I still think she's really cool. So, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the stream?
Well, hello. And yes, I do remember it. I believe you're right that it was PAX West, and
Yeah.
that was a lovely PAX, and certainly
PAX.
remembering all of those PAXs have helped this past year, and I can't wait to go back. So
Same.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it'll be
right.
different. We will all be wearing like multi-layered masks. We'll have masks in our pockets so that this one's gross and not because I ate a chili dog, so I'm gonna put a new one on. It's gonna be amazing. The culture is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be showing off all of our custom made masks, and everyone's going to be talking about where they got theirs.
Oh
And
yeah,
you're going to go to the vendor hall, and there's just going to be like
booths.
Mask Central.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it's going to be.
it's good.
I cannot wait. Yeah.
I used to wear masks before all of this happened because I have an autoimmune disorder. I'm fun. A doctor recently told me when I started adding more things that I have. They were like, "You're fun, aren't you?" Yeah, I'm fun. So I've had an autoimmune disorder for a while, and a couple of years ago, I met somebody who's now a very good friend of mine. They were wearing a mask, and I was like, I'm going to try that because I always get pneumonia or at least the flu when I travel on airplanes. Because when I catch a cold, it turns bad pretty fast. So I started wearing them on airplanes, and I started not getting super sick every time I flew. It was awesome. So the thing is those masks are really uncomfortable, and I hated them. And the pandemic is not good at all in any way, shape, or form, and I hate it. But we do have more comfortable masks now.
I have
And
a
they're
place
prettier.
here. Yeah, I have a place here in Seattle that I just ordered a couple of masks from, and it
Ooh.
is Seattle, so of course.
Right.
So they're a local place, and they do the thing where if you buy a mask from them, they'll send one to a place that needs masks.
Yes.
They make flannel masks.
Oh, what is this place? I gotta find this. What is it?
It's Thomas. I will get you the link on one of our breaks and
Yes,
get it to
please.
you
That's very
because I'm
important.
blanking on the name of it right now. They are not the cheapest masks, but they're lovely made. They do have the non-flannel ones. They're the ones that give you a little bit more room in your nose and mouth so that it's a little more
Yes.
comfortable to talk because I have a very large mouth, and so I need to make sure that my mask doesn't go off my nose when I'm trying to talk to people. But yes, they make flannel masks, and it's the best thing ever of all time, and I love them so much.
I definitely want a link. I mostly use Volante masks. I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for
Yes.
a link right to their page. I really like them because they're actually very comfortable. They do the over the head thing, and behind the head instead of the ears. And I've got glasses and I wear noise canceling headphones, and so having a different space for the headband has been really helpful. And one of their masks is sort of water resistant. And
Ooh.
I had this image of somebody coughing on me, and it sort of like beating up, and drifting off, and I was like, I need that one. I need that exact
Yeah.
mask. So I really like. They're also washable, which is nice because you can reuse them.
Yeah.
All of my old masks you couldn't wash, and I was like, I paid $100 for this, and I can use it 6 times, and
Mm,
yeah, it was no good.
yeah.
Anyway, masks, yeah. So packs, yep, cool. Sorry to
Facts.
sidetrack you on that. I'm very passionate about masks.
No, that's amazing, and I will definitely. I've now bookmarked that link, and when we come back from break, I'll get you the link to the place in Seattle because yeah, I think that's you have to see the silver linings in the last year, and I
Yeah.
think geeking out over good masks is one of them.
Yep.
So absolutely.
It's definitely one of mine for sure. Okay,
Did I
well,
actually introduce
I
myself? I
don't
don't
think
know
you
if I
did.
was
I was
supposed
just
to
going to
do
ask you
that.
to do that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren Urban. I'm the community manager for D&D Beyond, and I'm excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you. I do want to point out that you also play the oboe like an angel, and I actually
Oh.
have a lot of friends that are oboe players as well, and so I hear both good and bad oboe playing on a semi regular basis. So I really like when you get an earworm and then you play it out and post it on Twitter. It's one of my favorite things from your what do they call your Twitter? It's not a library.
Twitter feed?
Feed, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a new name for that. Anyway, so if anybody's interested in the oboe, definitely follow Lauren. She talks about it sometimes. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah. So why don't you tell me about Kelbar? Where did this character come from? I believe this is a new character, right?
Yeah, Kelbar, like most of my new characters, comes from wanting to play something I haven't had a chance to play yet or being excited about a certain subclass.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, Kelbar is a clockwork soul sorcerer, a furbolg,
Yes.
and Kelbar was just born out of that idea of I want to play this clockwork soul sorcerer, but I don't want to lean too much into the mechanics of clocks and I wanted to expand that idea of a sorcerer who is connected to the to modrons and the plane of order and that whole idea of clockwork without it being just I'm going to carry around a bunch of pocket watches. And the Furbolg came about because I thought about how they're connected to nature and what is more natural than the progression of time
Mm.
and the natural order of things and the change of the seasons. And so Kelbar came out of that, and that is who she is. She's very into nature and the natural order of things, and unfortunately, her family in Waterdeep was not quite as keen on everything that I wanted to do, and I don't live there anymore, and it's a mutual decision, sort of.
I see. Okay. Let me. So I take an obsessive amount of notes. I shouldn't say that. They're not really obsessive. I take a bunch of notes. The reason I do that is I've been waiting for one of my guests to be like, I have to finish this story, and I dreaded the day that they asked me to do that, and I'm like, I can't because it'd take notes. It did eventually happen, so my paranoia was proved correct. You said Waterdeep.
Yes, my family has a noble house there. I don't go by that last name anymore because mutual decision. We'll call it a mutual decision. Yes,
I see that. Yes.
they'll say I got kicked out, but so I grew up in a very loving family until suddenly it wasn't quite so loving anymore because I wanted to do things like get rid of daylight savings time.
Oh, yes. I can see where that would cause quite a bit of conflict.
Well, daylight savings time goes against the natural order of things. It's all supposed to, the seasons change and the sun and the moon come, and you're just supposed to change with the seasons. And I did not appreciate the fact that all the masked lords wanted to just change the hour every couple of months. How disturbing is that? And that was kind of the last straw. And so now I'm out in the world where I'd like to think I'm supposed to be.
Lauren and I were just talking earlier about how time zones are. I was saying that time zones are stupid, and I hate keeping track of them, and I use an app on my phone instead. And she mentioned that I would really like her character. I do. I really like this. Time zones drive me up the
That idea
wall.
is from my husband, by the way, that,
Awesome.
she railed against time zones. So you can thank him for that.
I do. That's wonderful. Okay, so let's see here. So Kelbar is from Waterdeep. What does Kelbar look like?
So Kelbar is a fairly thin furbolg, about 6.5 feet tall, kind of wiry framed. She has a very unique fur and skin. They're almost a brassy color. And that's kind of betraying her sorcerer nature. She wears some pretty simple clothes. They're all incredibly well made. The clothing that she wears is right now what you would expect a rich person to buy when they think this is the appropriate thing to go camping with. So she went to REI and bought the fashionable stuff.
Right.
And they're functional, but they're not quite so worn in. You can kind of tell that she is new to being on the road. And she walks with she has a cane sword. It's a fairly large one. It's almost like 5.5 feet tall because she's
Dang,
fairly
yeah.
tall.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous piece of oak wood, and at the top has a very large chunk of amber that, if you didn't know it was a cane sword, would just be the top of this cane. And then when she pulls it out, it's so the mechanics are it's a dagger, but I picture it more like a little short sword.
Yeah.
And she got that from an experience she had as a kid, and then something she was inspired to do. And she's got a little backpack that has.
Did she make this sword herself?
No. I went to. So the wood from this sword came from a tree that sadly fell on me when I was a child. Yeah, I was doing a dumb thing, and I was playing out in our family's vineyard when I really shouldn't have, because there was this really nasty thunderstorm going on. I was young and impetuous and thought there was nothing that could happen to me, and this is exciting. And I stood under a tree, and now I know that that's not the thing you're supposed to do. Fortunately, so my leg got a bit knackered, but it's better now. And I saved the wood, and when I got a little bit older, I brought it to this renowned gnomish druidic artist in town, and they made this for me. I've never watched anyone do this before. They like spoke to the wood, and it just crafted itself. It was absolutely magnificent.
That is cool. Sorry, I think I missed maybe where the amber came from somewhere in there. I have ADHD and have had a migraine for the last week, and ADHD meds make the headache worse. So I'm having a little trouble. I love your accent and I love what you're telling me, but I feel like I'm missing concepts, and I apologize. So if I ask you to repeat anything, I am sorry in advance. The brain fog is real today.
No, I totally understand. And you haven't missed it. I haven't talked about it yet. And I should probably slow down just a little bit. The amber is from the tree. She was able to take some of the sap out of it and craft the top of the sword. So it was fantastic to watch them work. It was part of what inspired me, that when I got kicked out of my family, that it was okay to just go ahead and leave. I wanted to just see more of the world like that. I'd never experienced anything like that.
So your sword, yeah, that's amazing. Your sword doesn't have a cross hilt. It's just a straight hilt, so that it looks like it fits into the cane. The hilt is made out of wood with the amber in the top, or is the entire place where you grip like a longer piece of amber?
The top is wood. It's basically, I had a short sword
like
made.
Twist. Yeah.
And then the gnomish, I actually did write down their name. Riona. They're a gnomish druid crafter in Waterdeep that I was recommended to, and they took the wood of this tree that I'd been holding onto for a while and crafted the cane part of it, and then took the amber as kind of put on top of the pommel, and so most of the time it's just my mobility aid, and then every once in a while it's become very useful, especially as I've gone out into the world. I'm not very good with it, but it makes me feel better, and sometimes that's what's important.
Often it is. I really appreciate
Mm.
when mobility aids are something that you can personalize or feel personal to you. When I first started using a wheelchair, I was so frustrated because it was, I mean, obviously my wheelchair has to be purple, and it took me a really long time to find one that would work well. It's in the mail. I'm very excited. It's purple and
I
green.
so
It's gonna be so cool.
forgive forgive the out
Yeah,
of game question,
yeah.
but I have to assume that wheelchairs, they're not a kind of thing you can easily paint. So they have to be like crafted in a color, or is the paint have to be a specific kind of thing?
It depends on how crafty you are. I am not, so painting is just not gonna happen for me. And so I would usually you've seen me at PAX in a chair where the my backpack and the bag on the side of the chair were bright colors instead. I'm getting a new chair that I don't have to drive with a joystick. I can actually drive it by leaning. So it's
Oh,
hands
nice.
free. Yeah, and they actually make them in purple, and I was like, it's fate. I need this. It's very important.
Is it like a bright lavender purple? Is it more a darker purple?
It's like one of those medium. I think of it as like the non-purple lovers purple, where it's like it's purple, but it's not like one
Okay.
of the fun purples. And the green that's on there is the same thing, but it's close enough, and I don't care.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Okay, so your cane sounds really cool. It's something you had before you left. It's something you took with you. Gives you a little bit of comfort beyond being an actual mobility aid. That's good. Um, okay, so you left home. Do you think it was due to an argument about daylight savings time?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. That's. I angered a few of the masked lords with that stunt. I still
I
think I
say.
was right. I still think they should have listened to me, but it was apparently the last straw in a whole series of things that annoyed them. And they talked to my parents, and my parents suggested I go stay with some friends in Neverwinter for a little while, get out of town. Um, I think they were trying to convince me to go calm down somewhere, that I was too young, too impetuous, which is probably right. But I had no interest in calming down, and so I took the money that they gave me to leave to go to Neverwinter, and I just didn't go to Neverwinter. And I've
Yeah.
been kind of wandering ever since.
Yeah, I think we can find something interesting for you to do. Why would you have been able to talk to the masked lords? Were you at a party? Did you have a presentation? Like, were you on like some sort of committee that where you could speak your mind? What do you think was the interaction level there?
Oh, there was some committees that I was fortunately, because my family came from noble lineage, I have access to a lot of people, or I had. Uh, I do miss that access a little bit, but yes. So I was able to um, get access to all sorts of important people, and I did that a little too much, I guess.
Little bit too much.
Maybe maybe I was a little too insistent on meetings and charts and graphs and not being ignored. You know that thing that people do when they want to humor you and they say, "Oh yes, we'll talk to you at a later date. I'll have
Yes.
my people talk to your people."
Yes.
I would then continue to badger. So that's probably one of the reasons. And then they had no interest in listening to anything that I had to say.
Well, of course not.
So
No, I'm very familiar with that feeling, so I have a lot of sympathy for Kelbar. Okay, so Kelbar's going to go out into the world. They're not going to go to Neverwinter. I usually set most of these, everything I do in a world I create called a Zinlia, so we're going to have you visit an Azinlia town probably. Now,
oh, excellent.
let's think here. Kelbar, we have why she left. Why didn't she go to Neverwinter? Was it just didn't want to do what her parents told her to, or was there a goal there?
I think if you ask her, she's going out to find her destiny. But really, it's she didn't want to do what her parents told her to do.
Got it.
And this was the first moment of freedom that she's really had.
Mm-hmm.
And she was basically given a horse and some money and said, go to Neverwinter and go cool your jets there.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw that as an opportunity, and she saw that as the classic call to adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Whether anything is actually going to happen, who knows? And she's now had to experience like roughing it on the road a little bit. Um, but yes, as far as I'm concerned, any moment now, my destiny awaits. But really, she is, her parents told her to do something and were trying to punish her, and she decided that she was going to do something else and spite them.
Okay. I really like this idea. Now we can actually pick it up right from that point where she's like the gates have just closed behind her. The world is her oyster. She can go wherever she wants and needs to start making decisions. I can start putting things in her path that she has to react to. We can skip like a year down the road where she's telling somebody about this, and as they're hiring her for like a job or something, so we can get a little more into her backstory. It's up to you. What would you like to do?
I kind of like the idea of it being like a year later,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like probably at first it was very boring and pedantic. It was a lot of her learning how to live on her own. She's not so egotistical as to think that, oh, being out in the world and being on my own is going to be easy. Like, she did
Right.
research. I
Yeah.
think she's probably read a lot of books, and she understands that reading a book is not the same as going out and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But probably at least those first couple of months of like camping on the side of the road and
Right.
finding a town and learning about how to find jobs and like intellectually knowing about that you have to do that and then actually doing it are two different things. So I think that first period of her life was actually kind of boring.
Yeah.
And a lot of her going, oh yes, I read about this, all right. But yeah, after about a year, I figure she's just a little more seasoned, a little less uh naive is the wrong word, but a little more used to it, a little more practiced
More
at being on
experienced,
her
yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's had her first year at college and has come home and actually understands finances and doing her own checkbook, that
Checkbooks.
kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Yeah. I actually, when I was a kid, went to a children's museum where they did teach you how to use a checkbook, like as one of their exhibits. And I never knew how weird that
Ooh.
was until I got into college and people were like, "What is this?"
Mm. We had a class in high school that was I think it was like the house and homemakers class, but the person teaching it, at least for me, actually was doing practical things like, here's how you balance your checkbook, here's how come up with a grocery list, here's how you do all the sorts of pedantic adult things, and
Yep.
not just, let's bake cookies. So I was forever grateful for that. But also, same thing, most of the time when I talked about my home economics class, people were like, yeah, we baked lots of cookies, and I went, I learned how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kelbar has had that experience of,
Yeah.
I learned how to, and now I've actually had to.
Okay. So I think that's good. I have some other questions. Now, she's a clockwork soul sorcerer.
Hmm.
She was discovering this when she was at home, but was it the kind of active discovery like I have read books and I know where Modron is, or do you think it was coming out in like fits and bursts where like the color of her eyes was turning more copper, like a coppery brass color. Her concern about time and the natural order of it came up in committees, but she wasn't quite practicing that magic yet. Do you think maybe that would have started happening after she left, or while she was still at home?
While she was still at home,
Okay.
I think it's something that kind of it came in fits and spurts. She thinks perhaps that encounter with being out in the storm under the tree might have been the catalyst,
Mm.
or but there's no proof of that. She just knows sometime after that was when she had this realization of, oh, maybe I should pay attention to the world around me, and I'm not invincible.
Hmm.
um Sometime after that was when she started developing her abilities, and she kind of codified this idea of wanting to adhere to more of the natural order. um And I'd imagine because she had access to libraries and things in Waterdeep,
Yep.
she probably has found out about Modrons and Mechanists, but I don't know if
Yeah.
she's made that connection. She just knows that she's got these powers and these changes happened. And I do think it was gradual and in fits and spurts as she was growing up. Just kind of, oh, I grew 2 feet today, and also I learned how to do this magic.
Right. I mean, she comes from a noble family. She would have had tutors. She would have had access to all those libraries, but it would again have been book learning, right? And so when she went out into the world, like how to practically apply whatever sorcery, she probably would have very quickly learned. Sorry, Laura, you and I were talking earlier about spells that you've created that just, of course, you would have this spell. It's not necessarily a D&D spell. I think Kelbar probably would have come up with some practical applications for her magic as well, don't you think, while she was out in the world?
Yeah. She probably, especially since her tutors and her studies might not have dealt specifically with wherever her magic was coming from, and
Right.
because as a sorcerer it just kind of happens. So
Yeah.
yeah, she probably learning at least how her magic manifests would be one thing, and then also, well, why can't I just do this? This seems like something I should be able to do.
Do you think, sorry, Tyler just said, Lauren is so creative that my head is spinning.
Oh,
I know. They are sweet. Brain. Oh, so do you think sorry, I'm asking so many questions, but I'm very interested and I have an idea. Do you think Kelbar is the kind of sorcerer that taps into an internal reservoir, or is relying on aids like the maybe the amber stone as like a focusing agent? Do you think they use spells to calm their mind, right? Like sort of a recitation thing? Do they like meditate to gather energy? Like how do you think they manifest it?
definitely no meditation.
No
It's
meditation.
no. She's a little too impulsive for that. It's probably a mixture of it spontaneously comes out of her.
Hmm.
She just kind of knows how to do things. Um, and then the amber and her sword cane is a grounding. She probably uses it as a focus without even really understanding what that is. Like,
Got it.
she's probably been taught what wizards use as spell implements and um what other practitioners of magic use,
Hmm.
but she probably doesn't even really realize that that's become her focus, that's become the thing that she channels her magic through or focuses through.
Right.
She probably thinks it's just an innate thing, which is not wrong, but
No, it's
yeah,
not wrong
she's
at all.
still
I find it
yeah,
interesting.
she's still kind of learning everything.
I find it interesting this idea that she would have been taught sort of classically, whereas her stuff's a bit
Yeah.
weirder, like off the other end. And I'm wondering if we could tell a little bit of a story where I can make something happen, and maybe she's realizing, right, like that her classical training doesn't cover everything. Like for
Mm.
example, maybe she goes to cast a fireball, and it's not the usual cherry red. It's a weird brass color, and time seems to flicker when you've cast it, or something like that. And
Yeah.
maybe she's intelligent enough, right? Uh,
She's okay.
maybe.
She's her intelligence is 10, so
I,
she's
I
average.
I hate those numbers sometimes. She sounds
Yeah.
clever to me. The way that you've described her, she sounds clever. So I'm gonna say she's clever. Um,
Okay.
maybe she realizes, right, like that's not quite the effect that she was taught, and maybe she's realizing there's something a little bit different about how I do this. Um, do you think she realizes she's a Clockwork Soul sorcerer, or do you think she thinks she's kind of like a wizard and cares a lot about time, and we can marry those two together a little bit? Maybe she can find a mentor, or she gets set
Yeah.
on a quest where she has to deal with time magic or something like that.
She does not know. I don't think she knows what a clockwork sorcerer is. I think she knows because Waterdeep is a learned enough place, and I think sorcerers. It's kind of up to you whether in your world how known different practitioners of magic are, but
Mhm.
I think she understands the concept after some of her education. I really like the idea that you were saying about how she's probably being classically taught, oh, you're a wizard, here's a spell book,
Mhm.
go ahead and do these motions, do these things, and a fireball happens.
Right.
What I'm trying to think. Here, let me grab a spell she actually
She has, yeah.
has. Or even better, because so she does have access to Chaos Bolt, because I'm like, well, you're a sorcerer, you gotta have Chaos Bolt. That's such a fun
Obviously.
spell.
Anybody. Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
love
Chaos Bolt
Chaos
is
Bolt.
just
It's so good. I've got a
it's
sorcerer that
rid-
uses it just very occasionally, and I'm like, use it more, use it more.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It has the
So I
word
wonder
chaos in it.
if that moment of like, all right, we're gonna teach you how to do fireball, and instead she just keeps casting Chaos Bolt because
Mm.
she's just doing it on half instinct and half what feels right.
Okay.
And
So
yeah.
she does that. This is her back at home. She does that. She's clever enough to realize that what they're teaching her and how it manifests is a little different. She does some research. She finds some study. She finds a book about Clockwork Soul sorcerers or something, and it clicks. Like that's me. However,
Mm-hmm.
you did specifically mention that you didn't want it to be all about the gears and actual clocks. You wanted it to be more about time as a natural base. So I still think there's a bit of difference there. I think maybe the book she finds is written by some old Khajiit, gnome, who is obsessed with clocks, and of course that's how his soul manifests. So I think she finds. Sorry, the captions distracted me. They threw up a bunch of asterisks, and I was like, "What did you think I said?" Oh, it was probably
Oh,
crotchety.
now I'm cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, it spelled it that time. Anyway, um, so she goes out into the world knowing what she is, knowing that she's going to do things a little differently, knowing that it has something to do with time as a concept, and
Yeah, I like that a lot.
thinking,
I like
yeah.
the idea that she's found out enough about what she is, but it's not exactly like, yeah, the idea of, well, this is what I am, but I'm not flavored that way. No, I have no interest in grandfather clocks. What are you talking about?
What if
Hmm.
thinking? What if she has spent the last year learning how to practically apply all the basics? And you mentioned that it would be sort of probably a boring, pedantic first year. How about we take that literally?
Hmm.
All the jobs she gets are like escort this merchant from A to B. Oh, you're gonna fight some kobolds, And so she learns all the basics, right?
Yeah. All the level one, go kill some rats,
Yeah,
go do the escort mission, go meet someone in a tavern. She
exactly.
does all the cliche D&D things.
She's got a bucket list. She checks it all off,
Yes.
right? Now, what if she is headed towards her next job, which is what I call boring jobs. Let's say she's headed to her next job, and let's say it's another escort mission. This one's a little trickier. It's over some mountains that in my world are called the Kellas Mountains,
Okay.
and
And who is she escorting? If it's a trickier one, is it tricky because
trying to
they're
decide.
difficult?
Yeah, I'm trying
Is
to
it
decide whether it's
tricky?
the
Yeah.
merchant that manifests this weirdness. I want to throw in weirdness, and I want Kelbar to play with
Okay.
the weird. And I'm trying to decide whether in a passing town you pick up this weird, or whether the merchant itself manifests it, and I can't decide.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
So at level 5,
Hmm.
Kelbar has this interesting ability in where basically the mechanics of it are anyone within 60 feet of me, if they're rolling with advantage or disadvantage, I can use my reaction to cancel it.
Rude.
I can just say no, so I can help allies
haven't-
by
You,
getting
you have a nope spell. That's rude.
I have a no. Yeah. And so, like, if my friends have disadvantage on something, I can just say nope, you're fine. And if my enemies have advantage, I can say nope, you don't.
What
And
the
so I
heck?
wonder if
What spell is
that's
this?
the moment.
Oh,
Like, it's not quite, and so it's the idea of No, you're
No,
not
it's not. Okay.
supposed to get I wonder if the flavor of that is it's not that you're getting disadvantages. That I'm saying no. The natural order of things is that you just get to try,
I wonder if
or
that.
no, you don't have advantage on this.
I wonder if it messes with micro pieces of time. I kind of like the idea of Kelbar being very, very interested in the natural order of time, but somehow
Yeah.
their magic is influencing time and space in a way where you kind of walk back the advantage, and so you change tiny pieces of the time stream so that it fits into your natural order, which is in itself not natural, but
I was just about to say, I wonder if she's now that she's coming into her own, if she's starting to feel not egotistical, but like I know how to do this, and so I must be what I say is right.
mm-hmm.
And so because I can do this, this must be the natural way it works.
Right. Oh
And she
yeah.
probably has that misunderstanding and maybe a little bit of ego.
Yeah.
Like, I've made it through an entire year, and if I can do this, I mean, this must be the way it's not that I'm actually changing anything. It's I'm putting things on the right path, and this is what I do.
I like it.
That kind of half ego.
Right.
Look at me, I'm special.
Yeah. I really like this. Okay. I want to say that you are traveling with an older gentleman and his much hardier son. The older gentleman is one of those kind, will ramble on about his past types. The son is a little more hard-eyed, a little more aware. He's got a couple of guards hired. You're one of them. And he seems to have covered all the bases, right? Like you've got your fighter, your barbarian, whatever. What you're escorting, what this merchant sells. Heck, do we just want to be real on the nose and say he sells clocks?
Yeah, and then she probably had this moment at first where, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And then he's kind enough and she's willing enough to listen to his stories, and eventually it's like, all right, I've no interest in what you're selling, but you're really nice.
You're a
and
nice
so
guy. You've got gold. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to hang out with you and listen to your stories, despite the fact that I have no interest in what you're selling.
Now, let's say you've been traveling for a couple of days. Is this the story you want to go on? Like, are you willing to participate in this story here, or would you like to change tracks at all? I'm comfortable
I like
with either.
this.
All right.
I like where this is going.
All right, then I'd like you to roll an insight check on the son, whose name is Betzel.
It's pretty good. I got a 22. And I'm sorry, can I get the spelling of the son's name?
Yes, I will put it in the chat.
Perfect.
This was generated by Tyler Moonsage.
Thank you.
I have a channel point option where you can. Oh dear, I have to stand up for a second. Where you can cash in 10,000 channel points to generate a name, and I'll try and use it during the session.
Oh, that's cool.
And Tyler watches a lot of my streams, so this is the second time they've been able to use it. And in my D&D recap, my Twitch recap, it called out Tyler as cashing in the most channel points, and I was like, yeah, that sounds right.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
And I look forward to finding out what Betzel is thinking, as I got a 22 on this insight.
Yeah, so let me tell you what he's thinking. I'll set up the scene and then we'll take a quick break, because my service dog who can open doors, I have a latch on the door that you put on for babies, specifically so she can't open the door. And it's usually supposed to keep her and her baby service dog sister in the room, because if I can't see them, they get up to all kinds of antics because service dogs. She's on the other side of the door because she's supposed to be getting a hairbrush from not Luthera, my husband. And so she's standing on the other side of the door going, So I can't respond to it right away because it will just encourage this behavior. But she's literally like, she's got her nose in the little crack and she's going, and I don't think the mic's picking up on it. Yeah, it's cute, but I cannot respond to it because I can't encourage this behavior. So I'll set up this scene and then I'll respond. Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so you've been traveling for a couple of days. Old man Betzel is, we'll say Betzel is a family name.
Betzel Senior, Betzel Junior.
Yep. And so Senior is prattling on about his love of clocks, and you're used to this. And he seems to like talking to you best out of all the guards. Who knows why? Affinity for time. I don't know. And the son, you notice, over the last hour or so has been checking your surroundings more. He's been looking at he has a floppy notebook that has a map drawn in it. And that's what he's been referencing as you folks are traveling, like for landmarks and things. He's been referencing that more and more. It does not seem like you're lost. You get the feeling that you are close to where he wants you to be, but you know that it's actually another week or so to get to where you've been told you're escorting them to.
Okay. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Hang on, I have to write that down.
All right.
I don't even know how to write that down. He's close to where he wants to be. I don't know. Okay, so
he's got an ulterior motive,
sure.
And the motive is coming up soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the floppy notebook. I like the idea of him like holding it and like, sort of like making it flop, a little while he's thinking, and then like flipping it open, and like he's got a little pencil and he like scribbles stuff and he circles things and then closes it again and it's thinking and flopping. You notice over the next rise or so little points of smoke which indicate cook fires or chimneys. So not the smoke that would cause panic, but like, we're approaching a town over the next rise. The sun seems to be sort of looking around like he's waiting for something. Roll me a perception check.
Sure.
Did you hear that? Yeah, she's getting sassy.
She knows we were talking about her.
Yeah.
I actually, once again, rolled pretty well. I rolled a 21.
Excellent.
So I think I notice him being antsy, and I'm not sure what he's antsy about. So now I'm rubbernecking.
Yes. You notice two things. The first thing you notice is those columns of smoke that sort of fade into the background of your mind once you start because they're normal. Once you start looking at them, you realize they are not normal. Normally smoke rises at the same rate, maybe with a little bit of difference depending on the wind. Sometimes one or two will be going in one direction. None of the smoke that you see is rising at the same rate. One column of smoke appears to be frozen, and as you stare at it, you can see very small smoke movements as if it's been really slowed down. Another one, by contrast, is moving too fast, as if the rate of smoke is just more than it should be generated. And you notice it getting fainter and then stronger, as if throughout an entire day, you're seeing an entire day repeated over and over and over again, right? Like it's built up in the morning and then it dies down and built up again in the evening, right? You're seeing that in a sort of a fast forward motion. You're seeing some plumes that they're so close together they must be coming out of the same house, right? But they're in different directions, as if the wind is pulling them and pushing them. I will say it is subtle, right? It's not something you would notice unless you were like really looking at it, because none of it's so obvious that you're like the smoke isn't like going in two different directions exactly. It's just sort of leaning. The other thing that you notice is a ripple. It looks like a heat ripple, right? Like you'd see over a fire from the right angle, but it is a clear sunshine day. There's a couple of clouds in the sky. The weather is brisk, but not, you don't have to wear a heavy coat. There's no risk of snow. It's not a hot summer's day. It's maybe one of those rare winter days that aren't too cold. There's no reason for there to be this sort of like ripple, and you only see it out of the corner of your eye.
And where am I at the moment with this? Is there like a caravan? Is it just a cart and some horses and the guards? Is there more than a couple of carts? Let's
say it's 2 wagons. One of the wagons the old man sleeps in, so it's more of a spot for him and his son. The other wagon, and it holds like supplies like food and things, and then the last wagon is all of his goods. Let's say there are, let's say 7 guards, including you, because I like the number 7. Which is about appropriate for the 2 wagons. That means you have enough for all of the shifts throughout the night. There's enough for 3 for each side and a wanderer, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And am I with anybody right now? Am I with senior? Am I with any of the guards?
I think you were riding that horse you mentioned.
Hmm.
Up front, it's your turn to be up front and listen to the old man's stories.
Okay. Yeah, Peanut Butter is used to this. Peanut Butter is used to just ambling along.
Is your horse's name Peanut Butter?
My
I'm
horse
so
is named Peanut
excited
Butter.
right now. Okay.
I
Um,
I I have liberally stolen that from one of my players who named her horse Peanut Butter, and so shout out to Jules.
Hi,
Um,
Jules. I love your horse's
yeah.
name.
Um, and he's an older horse who is more of a friend at this point, and also just not interested in doing anything special. He likes ambling. Every once in a while, I want him to trot or run, and he gives the
If you really
yeah,
insist.
like why? We're not in a hurry. Um, and I don't know if we want to pause it there so
I
that you
think,
can.
yeah, I think we
Yeah.
will pause it there. I need to refill my water and I need to pay attention to the dog. Would you like 5 or 10 minutes break?
Um,
I usually
we've been
offer,
going for an hour. Let's
yeah, I usually offer 10 for people who have to walk dogs and stuff. Otherwise, 5's usually okay for me for a quick, just a quick break. It's up to you though.
If you only need 5, let's do 5 because
Okay,
I'm just gonna run and also refill my drink, so we should be
great.
good.
Okay, so stream. We are going to be right back, and by right back I mean we should be back right at the half-hour mark. I have to find the correct screen for this and make sure it says the right things. It does. Now, I don't have my stream music set up yet because I got scared off by the whole kerfuffle with Twitch. So I'm working on having
Mm.
custom sound, which is difficult to get because people have lives. So will we be... Oh, I got a new follow, Meeps and Peeps. I also got a follow from Megan. Megan Kenricht?
Oh,
Kenricht?
Megan! Huh.
Yeah. They said hi earlier. Thank you so much for the follows. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited. So we'll be back right at the half-hour mark. It'll be silent. My apologies. But if you have any questions, drop them in chat. If you have any suggestions, drop them in chat. We will not necessarily listen to all of them, but we'd love to read them. So Stream, we will be right back. Unmuting. Did that? Yes. Okay. Hello, stream. We're back. As usual, I had to check all of the buttons to make sure that I had unmuted everybody. I did. Hooray. All right, we're back from our break. I ate a cookie. That's what took so long. My apologies.
I was envious of that cookie.
It was really good. Yeah, and in fact, I couldn't bake all of the cookie dough, so there's cookie dough in my freezer.
All right, I am one of those people who will just eat raw cookie dough.
I will too.
Know I
not
know
good for
you're
you.
not supposed to, but it's so good.
I do it all the time. Okay. Sometimes I write down the wrong word. I wrote down ample instead of amble. And it was amusing to me. Okay. So you've just noticed, you ready to jump back in? You're on the road. You're next to the old man. He's telling you a boring story. You've caught the son Betzel, looking around. And you've noticed the smoke, and you've noticed an odd shimmer out of the corner of your eye. Sound about right?
That sounds right to me.
Anything you want to add?
I mean, it all sounds weird, but we're going to deal with that.
I love the weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so just as you're noticing the shimmer, one of the guards on the right side of you're on the left side, they're on the right side. You hear one of them cry out in alarm, and then another person laugh, and another guard laugh and be like, "What is wrong with you?" And the guy that had yelled out is like, "I don't know, there's something, I see something, it just keeps disappearing." And you see the son sort of like turn his head very carefully, and then he calls a halt. Like you see him, like you recognize the behavior of like he sees something too, and he calls a halt. And the old man doesn't stop his cart. You're probably familiar with this behavior at this point, that you're actually going to need to lean forward and like apply pressure to the reins, kind of thing.
You said the guard is on the opposite side of the cart from me, the one that noticed the thing and called out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I'm going to use that moment where I'm kind of used to just reaching over and gently grabbing the reins to stop the cart as also an excuse to lean past Senior and look at the guard. I think I saw something too. What did you see?
He says, "I don't know, it's just like a flicker, like there's something flickering right where I can't see it." And the other guards, yeah, no,
like heat shimmer.
He goes, "Yeah, but like it's not in front of me, it's kind of like," and he's like sort of spinning in a circle, gesturing. He does. If you hadn't seen it as well, this would be very strange behavior.
No, I'm seeing the same thing. It's very odd. And has anyone else noted the oddness with the smoke? What town are we approaching anyway? Does anyone know what town this is?
The son says, "Oh, I'm terrible at town names. Hang on. I usually keep a street map up.
I usually have a fantasy name generator because I am also bad with names. So I'm just like,
Fantasy name generators don't do it for me. I literally take street names around me and then mess with them. That's where Zinlia, the name of the world, came from.
I mean, it works.
We are approaching Marmot, the son says. And the old man starts rambling about, "Oh yes, when I was a young man, Marmot was a very good place for my clocks."
Well, there's something going on with the smoke in Marmot. It's odd. Does anyone else see that?
And the guards sort of like scratch their heads and look. There's one guard who's a bit sharper than the others, and he sort of nods once. The son like squints at it, and he's looking at his book, that book that he's got. And
so,
sorry, he seems to be tracing something on the book, and like holding that spot and flipping like on a map, and then flipping a couple pages, and then he flips back and he's sort of like looking at it like thoughtful, like he looks slightly confused, like it's almost like this shouldn't be happening right here, kind of thing.
Okay. I'm trying to decide. Oh, she's pretty forward. Okay, I'm gonna look at Junior and say, "Does this look familiar to you? I see you referencing something. Has this happened in Marmot before?"
Roll me an insight check.
Mm. She's pretty insightful, but that was not as good of a roll. That's an 11.
Okay. So he says he flips his book closed and he's doing that thing where he's holding the bottom half and sort of gently making it flap back and forth. And he says, well, I've never been to Marmot. But this does seem to be odd, yes. And that to you that seems like he's telling the truth.
Yeah. Can I, now that I have confirmation that what I'm seeing other people are seeing, and we've kind of confirmed this isn't...
It's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Can I, in any way, do an examination of the area around me, or think about some of the lessons that I've learned and know, is this a magical effect? Is this an illusion?
Let's roll. Let's do an Arcana check just for funsies.
Okay.
Actually, I'm looking at your skills here.
Yeah, I kind of suck at Arcana.
Well, let's call it a history check because you're thinking back on what you've learned and stuff.
Okay. I got a 15.
Why are we pouting? Come here. Spread him.
She's pouting because I did not roll very well.
Spread
like, oh.
Hi,
puppy.
So what? Yeah, sorry. She's pouting, so I'm gonna pet her.
That's 100% fine with me.
I know, right? Like, look at this face. So let's see. With a 15, I think it's fairly obvious that there's. I think with a 15 you would know that this is at least against the natural order of things. And you cannot think of a time where this has happened before. Right, like a specific incident where you've seen these exact effects. Hang on. However, you think you remember seeing this visual effect, the flicker, at times where you've cast a specific spell, whatever that spell was that negates your nope spell, that negates the. Oh. I think maybe that flicker is something you've seen sometimes when you've cast that spell.
When I use that ability and I say, nah, you're gonna be fine.
But you're not sure if it's the same thing because this seems to be on a bigger scale.
How close does the shimmer seem to be to me?
It always seems to be about an arm's length away, no matter where you stand. So if you get down off your horse and you like move around, you have to go back about 200 feet for it to go away. And there doesn't seem
But it's kind of around me now?
Yeah.
I would like to cast Detect Magic.
Go for it.
And it'll actually be my part of my Furbolg ability. So it lasts for 10 minutes, and for the duration I sense the presence of magic within 30 feet of me. So I think as I'm kind of getting used to seeing it out of the periphery and getting an idea that this might be very close, I'm just going to activate that and start to really examine it.
I'm really glad you brought up Detect Magic because I get to tell you about the nonsense that happens in Azinlia. So,
okay.
Spoon is very interested in schools of magic, and I will read truly terrible books just to get at their magic system. I've decided that Azinlia has all of them. So I have a question for you. How does Kelbar see magic? When they cast Detect Magic, is this the kind of thing where it's like a knowing? Is it the kind of thing where you see the colors of different kinds of magic? Do you see threads of life force? Like what? And I don't care if you're a druid or not. The life force one tends to be sort of a druidy feeling thing. Does it seem like flickers of embers? Like what is Kelbar? How do they visualize magic?
I think they don't. It's not a seeing thing. I mean, I know it talks in the spell about auras and visible things, but I think for Kelbar, when she turns that spell on, it's pressure waves. It's suddenly feeling the so when there is magic in the area, it almost feels like there is like when you're underwater or when you put your hand in water and so you can feel the pressure of the water around you, and so she's getting that from directions on her body,
Mm-hmm.
and the sensation that she feels informs the school of magic. So if it's warm, it might be evocation. If
Mm-hmm.
it's cold, it might be illusion. If it's tingly, it's, like every school kind of has its own pressure feel to it, and
Got it.
where,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. And so if it's behind her, she's feeling it right here. If it's
Mm-hmm.
all around her, it's everywhere. So
Yeah.
she just kind of turns it on and then is very still for a moment as she takes stock.
Got it. Now, here's the other thing about Azimlia. Spoon thinks the schools of magics are kind of just bullshit. Like, and so in Azimlia, the way that I think about it in Azimlia is that they are loose guidelines for what magic might be.
Okay.
And so nothing is ever purely one school of magic. So what you're getting here is you are feeling mostly conjuration type magic. It appears to be coming directly from the town, but there is weird pieces of transmutation mixed in. Nope, sorry,
Mm.
divination mixed in. And so you're feeling all of that. It's very, very specifically in your 30-foot range, stronger, closer to the town.
Okay. Interesting. And so this lasts for 10 minutes. So if I move peanut butter forward, that pressure actually increases.
Yes, yeah. It doesn't get.
Okay.
Do you think the pressure would be painful if the spell was particularly strong?
I don't think it gets painful. But I think it gets uncomfortable when you get immediately close to something, or it's a very strong spell. So I really do feel like it's just like someone pushing against you,
Mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm,
if it's the prickling of needles,
mm-hmm.
it's never painful, but it gets it's not something that's fun sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, just
It's
checking.
that weird middle ground. So I
You're.
think she feels that moving forward and maybe stops a moment.
It gets stronger. You don't get to the uncomfortable stage yet. I was just curious. So it gets stronger as you move forward. Um, are you going to encourage everybody to move forward with you? What's your next step?
Well, I think I've only moved maybe 10 feet just to kind
Right.
of test it.
Yeah.
And now that I've confirmed that, I'll look at everybody, and I'm keeping an eye on the sun. I'm getting the sense that Senior is more of a passenger at this point, and Junior is the
Yeah.
one taking a more active. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll address this to Junior and say, whatever it is, it's coming from the town. It is strong. We're not even close to the town, and whatever's been manifested is making its way all the way out here. That's the weird fiddly bits in the air that we're all seeing. That's very strange.
You do know that when
Hmm.
certain kinds of magic sort of collide, they do tend to have certain kinds of visual effects. They're not usually very predictable. So you've never been able
Hmm.
to really figure out why you've ever seen something like this in the past. But this is a chance to gather more data.
I think she is really curious, especially if some of this is pinging to her own abilities.
Yeah,
And so as she's explaining this to people and looking at Junior, she is also going to cast Mage Armor.
sure.
Uh, so she's just gonna voomp, and she puts her hand on her chest, and there's a moment where the bronze fur and everything seems to grow just a little more rigid as she's going to put her AC at something decent. 13 plus dex, so it's now 15. And then she'll say, I would like to go take a look, especially since we have to go in this direction. I don't know if we all want to go. Anybody else feel like going on a little bit of an excursion? Figure things out a bit?
The son looks thoughtful, and he flips to another page in his book and seems to he finds something. This all happens very quickly. He finds something there, and it seems to decide him. And he snaps it closed. He tucks it in his pocket, and he says, "All right, Kelbar." And then he calls out to two of the other seven of you, and then he says, "We're gonna go check out the town. The rest of you stay with my father and the goods."
Okay.
And then he starts heading into town.
I'll give Peanut Butter a little bit of encouragement and give Peanut Butter a little bit more of encouragement because Peanut Butter does not want to trot.
Nope.
And we'll move forward. Yeah, and as we get closer, I'm going to continue to kind of concentrate on my detect magic and see if I feel any change in that, just beyond it getting stronger as we get close to town.
Yeah.
And I want to pull up side of Junior. Do I get any sense, since my tutors at home thought I was a wizard and had spent a lot of time trying to get me to do the wizard thing, I probably know more about the way wizards cast than some non-wizards. Do I get the sense that the book that he's constantly fiddling with might be a spell book, or might be something that he's using to cast magic from?
I think I would need
since he's referencing it.
Yeah, I think I'd need an Arcana check for that. That's a really interesting thought.
That's fair. That's a 7.
In my home games, when we roll a 7, I pull a card from the deck of wonder. I do not do that in my one-shots because it seems rude, but gosh, does it add a lot of chaos. What I will say is you can't quite tell. It's entirely possible, although the wizard books that you're used to are a bit sturdier, for one thing, and prized, I guess. You've probably never met like a hedge wizard or somebody who travels a lot. I think most of the wizards you've probably met are, the wear fancy robes and have special books kind. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, yeah, not sure. Maybe this is just a personalized thing, or maybe it's not, and it's just his notebook. But I will, like, as I'm eyeing the notebook to try to figure that out, I'll say to him, does this look familiar to you? Have you ever noticed anything like this before?
And he says, it wasn't what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
And he says, he kind of looks at you, and it looks like he's about to say something, and then he clams up. He says, it doesn't matter. Let's just see what's going on here.
And I'm going to turn on the charm. I'm going to smile real wide, and I'm going to remember how how I hit so many walls, and yeah, eventually I got kicked out of Waterdeep for it, but I got really far because I knew how to schmooze, because you have to when you're a noble. So I'm going to smile, and I'm going to say, oh, don't doubt yourself, dear. If you have a gut instinct about this, I would love to hear it. We're walking into something unknown, and I trust if you feel something is odd, I would trust your instincts. What do you think?
Now, I could have you roll persuasion, but I want this to work, and also your persuasion is stupid high, so I'm just gonna say it works.
Persuasion is kind of high. Yeah.
He's gonna look at you again, and you see that he actively looks worried, and he looks back over his shoulder at the wagon full of all the goods, and he looks at you and he goes, "Are you familiar with the concept of time?" And when he asks it, you can hear the capital T to time. He's not asking like, "What's the time?" He's like, "Time."
I am actually quite fascinated with it.
And he says, well, has it escaped your notice that if you put many time elements in one place, they sometimes react to each other? For example, have you ever been in a clock shop and noticed that none of the clocks are all set to the same time? Now, it doesn't really have anything to do with the clocks and how they're made. Yes, if you make a clock very badly, it won't keep time, blah, 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 blah. He says, but if you're looking at identical clocks, especially if they're at different points in the room, they'll be slightly different times. Have you ever noticed that?
I have, but I'd always assumed it was what you said, that there was probably just an error somewhere in the way it was manufactured, the way it was set up, something like that. You're saying that they're dealing with different time?
I think so. I have this theory. I've been thinking about this since I was a young boy. I don't have any magic myself, but it always seemed fantastical to me that you could build a clock and it could, in a way, control your concept of time. I mean, imagine this. You have a clock. You can see very clearly that 10 minutes have passed. However, for you it feels like an hour. Or the reverse. You're very sure that it's been at least an hour and it's only been, wait, no, how did I reverse it? 10 minutes, an hour. Oh, or the reverse. You spend what you feel like is just 10 minutes on something and it's been an hour or two. Does that not feel like something is controlling your concept of time?
I always figured that that was just our fallible way of perceiving time.
He said
time is a
No, go ahead.
time is a constant. Time is a universal. Time is a natural order that happens, and it is up to us to keep up with it and to work within it.
Yes, that is what everyone always tells me. That's what my teachers have told me. That's what my father has told me. And he sort of gestures back at his father when he says this, and he says, "Look at that man, though. Look at him. And he says, look at me. I am his first son. He had me when he was very young, and I am a young man. What you see there is someone who is old beyond his years." And when he doesn't have the impact he wants there, because it seemed like he was like a selling point, right? It doesn't quite land. He says, okay. Why do you think I have most of the guards around the wagon with all the clocks in it and not my father, my beloved father? Why would I do that?
I would assume that the problems that you have been with bandits across the road trying to go for your goods, and so that would be what they would attack. But it sounds like where you're leading to is that there's something. Are you guarding the clocks from things, or are you protecting others from the clocks?
And he says, I believe very firmly that we are doing the latter. What I am worried about here is that someone has messed with time. You see the different smoke. And he says, I don't know how they would do it. Again, I'm not a wizard. I don't understand the underlying energies of the world. I just see their effect. And he whips out his notebook and he says, I see their effect. And he like gestures with it and he says, I collect all of this data. I have been worried about this kind of thing happening ever since my father a couple years ago decided that we should be traveling to our customers. I've always worried that there was something different about his clock shop. I've been into other clock shops. We own other people's clocks. You know, we are a great, you know, crafting pride, blah 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 nonsense. Basically to reinforce the idea that he's been around clocks his entire life. He thinks there's something different about at least the clocks in his father's space. And he's noticed that, he tells you, when he's traveled, there always seems to be a slight difference. For example, he tells you, we sold a clock to a baker once. You know, when you bake things, you need to judge things by time very clearly. He was worried, or not. He was worried. He'd gotten wealthy enough that he could invest in like a showman's piece, right? So it was in the front of his shop. Now he had another timer that he would just use for working. He told me the next time we were in that town that they run exactly the same, right? They're down to the second hand moves exactly the same. However, ever since we bought that clock, his stuff cooks a little bit faster and a little bit fresher.
How far away have we gotten from the two carts and everybody? Or have we not moved very far?
No, I think, well, it depends on how fast peanut butter moves. I think you're topping the rise and you can see you're probably about, I am not good with distances. Let's say 400 feet.
Okay. Well, let me ask a more general question, or let me say why I asked. I think when he says this, my instinct, especially as he's motioned back to his dad a couple of times, my instinct is to turn around and go back to the cart with the clocks, especially since I still have detect magic up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we get to this rise and like on one side is the town and the other side is the carts,
Yeah.
I want to take a quick look. I want to stop and
Yeah.
take a quick look at the town, and then after seeing what's going on in the town from up here, look back at Junior and say, if what you say is true, I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but certainly that's where my magic comes from. It's from me and my views about the world and time. I would like a chance to actually examine your father's clocks before we examine this town.
And he stops with you at the top of the rise as you're looking down at the town, and he says, one of the reasons I hired you is because you have a reputation. But I didn't know if I could trust you. Which is why we have not spoken of this before now. He says, if you think it's important to examine my father's clocks, then before we head into the town, then we should do that.
Well, trust is earned. And certainly I would like a little more time to be able to earn yours and for you to earn mine. But I believe at this point we have been faced with a reason to accelerate that friendship. And if what you say is true, I don't believe we should just walk right into this town immediately. We should definitely examine your father's clocks first. See if we can determine anything.
Would you mind rolling me a perception check as you're looking down into the town, and I can tell you a little bit about what you see there?
Sure. I've been way too distracted by this idea that his clocks can affect time, and now I'm sitting at the rise, like town, but ooh, okay, suddenly these clocks interest me. I got a 10.
You get a 10?
I got a 10.
So let's say you glance down into the town, but you're quite distracted. You see people walking around. You see people moving around. It seems fairly normal.
Yeah.
But the smoke is faded into the background for you as well, right? You're way more interested in these clocks. So let's say you head back there. Yeah. How do you? You've got detect magic up. What are you looking at? Like, are you gonna take a clock apart, or gonna dig into what are we looking at?
So I'm gonna go straight to the cart that has the clocks, and just kind of, I imagine we've rode a little bit away and now we've come back. Pardon me, excuse me, sorry, got to check something first before we go into the town. Hang out here for a moment, and I'll go into the back of the cart and open it up. And I think there's a lot of, she stands there waiting to feel a ping from any one or all of these clocks, and then depending on what she feels is going to start to examine things more closely.
Okay, so the cart is loaded with boxes of all shapes and sizes. Because part of your job was supervising the loading of these, you did see one dropped, and the box kind of started to come apart. So you know that the clocks are wrapped very securely in a certain kind of cloth that repels water, and then again nestled into like a straw type material, and then the boxes are like nailed shut, so that it's as secure as possible. So you're just looking at boxes right now. Can we say that for Kelbar, there's a difference between magic that is imposed upon the world by humanoids and the inherent magic that comes from creatures like unicorns, or you can feel from trees and stuff? Like natural versus manufactured in a way.
Yeah, I think that especially for her and where she's so tied
Yes.
into the idea of the natural order of things that like, yeah, coming across a unicorn would feel different than a spell being cast or an
Right.
object that's been enchanted.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, can we also say that for Kelbar, sorry, am I pronouncing that correctly? Kelbar?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I find it very important that names are pronounced correctly. I'm not always great at it, but I try. Can we also say for Kelbar that she she feels that wizards are sort of jangly, like a lot of their magic is the casting spell type versus her own magic feels more natural, right? Like more like a unicorn. Can we say that Kelbar thinks she's a
Absolutely.
unicorn?
You know what? She probably does.
A
I
little bit.
think there is a little bit of, I think she does have some envy of the idea that you could learn a spell that, like, I want to learn how to do that, and that at least wizards have a process. So she's probably slightly envious, but I think you're absolutely right that yeah, she considers her magic, and that actually goes along with her being a furball because some of her magic is inherent. It
Yes,
is
I think
things that
this.
she just yeah.
I think the sorcerer stuff too feels more, yeah, inherent is a good way to put that.
Yeah, talent versus a learned skill, and her issue has been learning to refine her talent, and being maybe a little bit envious of those wizards who can just read a book and learn how to do something what she feels is easily, because when it's innate, when it's natural, it feels good to her and it feels different, but it's not always easy. It's not always what she expects. And if she wants to learn how to do something very specific, there's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds perfect. Okay, so she's standing
Yeah.
in the back of this cart and she's waiting to get those feelings. And what she feels is natural magic, but it is not a placid, I'm standing on a road and there's normal energy. There's a certain uptick, there's a certain flavor, there's a certain kind of pressure you get from the natural energies when, for instance, you're standing next to a waterfall, right? Like that's a crashing sort of feeling. Or near a particularly big fire, or standing next to the ocean. There's a difference in feeling there, and you are feeling that from this cart, and you should not be. It's just a bunch of clocks.
The box that was cracked open because it fell, is that how close is that box?
So they did hammer it back down. It was one of the last ones to be put on the truck. It was one of the longer sort of grandfather clocks. And they've Tetris these boxes in here quite well. There's a narrow aisle down the middle so you can get in there. And they're all strapped down and stuff. So this one I'll say is kind of near the top of the stack on the left side.
Okay. Since they've nailed it back shut, is there a clock that's a little more easily accessible, that isn't on a higher shelf, that's maybe on the bottom shelf, one that I wouldn't necessarily have to like pull off? She wants to yank one of these open and actually pull out the clock itself and get a really good examination of it. So I'm kind of looking for one of those.
How about we say there is a traveling case that is meant to be opened and not nailed shut, and
Display case.
yeah, there's a traveling case,
Perfect.
and it's got a couple of examples of the kind of wares, everything from like a very fine pocket watch all the way up to like we'll say a bread box sized clock, because apparently that's the only size I can describe. Is either
Like a one of those antique cuckoo clocks you'd have on the wall that are
Yeah.
like a couple feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll go for that in that way, because she was gonna pull out her cane sword and use the sword to crack open a box. But if she has easy access to that, then she's not even gonna turn to Junior and ask for permission. She'll go towards the display case, and she'll go for the cuckoo clock because it's got more innards, and pick it up. And she's feeling that pressure, that natural pressure.
It's definitely coming very faintly from these examples you have here. What's interesting about it is like you're standing next to a waterfall, that depth of feeling is so intense, right? And if you're a mile away from the waterfall, you can, if you concentrate very hard, you can kind of zero in on like the direction the waterfall would be in, right? Because of that sense. Um, that's what it feels like next to these clocks, like you're a mile or two away from a waterfall. So you're just very faintly getting that feeling that would have more depth if you were closer to it.
Hmm. Um, I'm going to I'm going to turn back to Junior and I'll say, well, you're definitely right. There is an interesting magic coming off of everything that your father has made. I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, but every single implement in here has some innate magic in it. Are you sure that your father has not been enchanting these clocks in any way, shape, or form? It feels magical, but for all I know, he's doing some amazing druid craft.
You know that face people make when you tell them something that is just incredible, and it's it's not exactly a blank face. It's like a very tense blank face. That's the face you're getting from him, because you've just confirmed something that he sort of implied he thought he might be a little crazy to think, right? Like he thought he might be imagining it. And he's very on edge because this town and what you're saying and and then you get to the bit about maybe your father's enchanting these clocks and he just goes, um, okay, so, okay, so, okay. So,
So,
you're telling me that these clocks are magic and they are impacting time?
I I don't know yet all of the details. I can sense magic in objects, things, places, and that's what I enacted when we got close to this town, and I'm still feeling that now. It's something I have to do, so I don't feel it all the time, but I'm feeling it now, and I am feeling it from all the
All the
clocks in
clocks.
here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, every single, and I'll hold up the cuckoo clock. I'm like, every single one of these is giving off something.
And
And as I say that, I want to open up the back of this clock and
mhm.
like examine the gears. Is this a working turned on cuckoo clock, or is it one of those like wind up ones and it's not currently running?
I think it's one of the wind up ones and it's not currently running.
I would like to wind it up and then open up the back as it's running and examine the interior of this and see, does the magic change? Do I get a stronger feeling from a gear or something?
Uh, One of the things that's, could we say that Kelbar has not developed a ton of precision yet, and that
Oh,
is a
yeah.
that's a long-term goal for this character. Is precision is going to be very important, and one of the first pieces of precision that she's got a good grasp on is that spell, that nope spell.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So in this case, Kelbar can tell that this is another example of a time where precision would come in handy. She just doesn't have it yet. So there doesn't seem to be a very big difference when you turn it on. And it could be the wash from the rest of the cart, it could be the wash from the town. You're not entirely sure if there's anything inside that's a particular piece that could be causing this.
Okay.
You don't see anything weird. Like there's no pulsing, glowing thingy. There's no, you could touch everything and nothing's particularly cold or hot or anything like that.
Okay. Um I'm going to look back at Junior and say, how many clocks has your father sold in Marmot?
And the son says, "We've never been to Marmot. There is a
Oh.
rival clockmaker there that my father has been rivals with for decades. I thought it was a friendly rivalry. And he's looking at the cart and he says, "My father made all of these clocks. And you're telling me they have magic. And
Yes.
he may have enchanted them."
I'm not sure about the enchantment part. This feels very natural, so maybe it's something with the materials he's using. Maybe it's... You know what? There's only one way to find out for sure. And I'm going to take the clock and, like, put it under my arm and walk out of the cart and back to the front where Senior is, who I'm assuming is still
talking.
onto another guard.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I'm going to gently place the clock on the bench next to where he is seated and say to him, "Your clocks are fascinating. And I haven't paid much attention to them because of, let's say, previous bias that I have just learned about. Tell me, how did you make these?"
He picks up the clock and he turns it over and he sort of touches a couple of pieces, and they seem to be like things you'd want to check to make sure they're seated correctly, because the back is still open. And he sort of sets it up on his knees and he says, "They just speak to me. I just build what needs to be built."
The moment that it speaks to you, is that when you pick up the wood for the casing, or the gears for the inside? Do you just wake up with an idea?
He reaches out and he touches your arm and he says, "You are made of a million different pieces, but you are you."
Kelbar actually thinks about this for a moment. I am me, but the universe put me together. You put this together, so you probably know more about it than anybody.
And he says, "Did I put this together, or did the universe put it together?"
Are all your clocks put together by the universe?
Or are they put together by me? Or do I just reveal where they are?
I'm sorry, my friend. I was not much for philosophy. I'm more about just the practical aspects of things. And while this is very fascinating, why are your clocks magical?
And he says, "Time is magical. It's a natural order. It just is. Just like my clocks." And he closes the back and he pats it. He kind of hugs it to his chest. Because this is just mine now. He just sits there.
Which is funny because I think Kelbar was about to take it back.
Mm-hmm.
And when he does that, like, "Oh, mine."
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
The impression
The impression
I'm trying to give here with Old Man, I think I'm going to pronounce the name Betzal. I think that sounds...
Betzal?
Betzal.
With the longer all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's fun. So I think with Betzal Sr., the impression I'm trying to give is he's a harmless old man. He spends a lot of time alone in his shop building these clocks. His wife died years ago. He likes to talk to people. You probably can picture him like on a front stoop with a bunch of other old cronies, drinking coffee and just jawing about the day. And the feeling you get from him when he talks to you, where you ask him those questions, is that, right? Is just the harmless old man, doesn't really know what he's talking about. There's nothing mysterious here. It's just a clock. That's the impression I'm trying to give.
Yeah. But I wonder if what I'm also getting, though, I almost feel like nothing nefarious, but certainly like he's tapped into something, even if he doesn't know what it is. Like, all right, questioning this guy, it's not that he's being obtuse. It's he just thinks he makes clocks because the universe tells him to make clocks, and he's doing something and he doesn't even really understand.
You know what it feels like, I think? Can Kelbar have met a monk in her recent travels? And
Sure.
the monk, let's say y'all end up in like a friendly sparring session. And during the friendly sparring session, like, practice in the morning and stuff, the monk runs up the side of a wall, does a backflip, and counters your sword move. And you take a, maybe, and maybe you ask him, like, how did you do that? I want to do that. And the monk can't explain it because they're like, you just do. And it like does it again. And you're like, but
I have the moment in where I've met the physical aspect of my magic. I don't know how to explain what I do. I just do it.
Yeah.
And I wish I could learn. I wish I could just have the instructions. And
Right.
now I've met a monk who does the same thing, except they do it with kicks and punches and flipping and everything. And so they say that, and I'm both elated and dismayed because I'm like, oh, you're exactly like me. Oh, that means you're exactly like me, and
Yeah.
you can't teach. Yeah. Okay, I love
there
it.
there isn't a huge sense of magic around him. Like if you're like a 10, he'd be like a 0.5, and this will never be your life. You won't be making clocks, and if you did, they would have a bigger effect than this, right? But and he's never had any training. Like there's a sharpness around someone's talent when they've had training of any kind, and there's just nothing. It's a very diffuse feeling, and in fact, the feeling you get from the clocks is a very watered down version is in this old man. And actually, if you look back at the sun, there's like a thread. It's the kind of thing where like it's there. Like he knows it's there. He can't see it. He can't feel it, but he knows it's there. And there's that sense of surety he has that it's there is just that thread that you see as like a diffuse fog in the old man and like a little bit firmer in the clocks.
Okay. Yeah, and I think in this moment, Kelbar has that same elated, dismayed feeling of like, I empathize with all of this, but because this is so innate, I don't know how to approach it. Like,
So Betzal Jr. has followed you and is like listening to this, and he, as you're thinking, he says, I've had the clocks tested. I've had them tested by wizards and sorcerers and hedge witches and everyone I could think of that I've had them tested. You're the only person that's ever been able to pull out any kind of magic from them or detect any kind of magic. And he almost looks suspicious. Right? Like he's been having these thoughts for so long and has had them denied so many times that as soon as somebody's like, you're right, he's like, I'm sus.
I'll look at him and say, the people who tested them, they cast a spell. They pulled out a book, they did a thing, they waved their hands, they cast a spell. Correct?
Of course. You cast a spell.
I did, but the way I do, especially that specific thing, I just feel it. This is part of what I do. This is part of who I am. This is not a spell. This is me. I think we need to go into town.
Betzal Sr. goes, yes.
Because, this detect magic, it's not something I get from being a sorcerer. It's what I get from being a furball. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to go into town. Now that we've examined this.
When you say that, the son looks so frustrated. Like he's been looking for so long. And then you say that and the old man goes, yeah. And like you can see this look of frustration, like you are, god damn, you're the same. So, and you say you want to go into town?
Yeah, and so we'll remount, and I think as we're once again heading back into town, I want to continue that conversation with him because I empathize with that moment that the son just had completely. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say, if it makes you feel any better, I'm not a fan of it myself. I mean, I'm a fan of what I can do. I like it, but there's something annoying about not being able to describe it the same way that, a wizard can. Wizards, they just pull out a book and they just they show you equations, and there it is on the page. It's like baking. You just do the steps, and the thing happens. What I do is very natural. It feels right. It feels good. But if you ask me to explain it, I'm not going to have the words, and I can recite half the dictionary.
He says, but clocks don't grow on trees. How is that natural?
But your father is natural, and
He didn't
I
grow on a
think
tree either. And he didn't grow these, he built them. That's like baking. That's like following steps. That's not natural.
But if he knows how to bake, if he just knows, if he is not looking at a recipe and he's doing it innately, the same way that any one of us has been created. Nobody built us. We were just naturally created. The difference is important sometimes. And especially in this case, I think it is incredibly important, especially when it comes to time. I don't think we're going to find any more answers, though, here. I think we're going to need to go into town.
I think you're having this conversation as you go into town because he.
Yeah, we're walking and talking, trotting and talking.
Have you ever talked to somebody and they just have so many like things they want to say out loud that they don't know where to start? I think you're having that effect on him where you're like very reasonably like, think about it, and he just wants to be like, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? But what about this? Mm-hmm. And you could see him sort of like collect himself, and you're right. Let's go into town and get more data. Even I can feel this effect. And the two guards that stayed at the top of the ridge, when you meet them, are like, all right, let's do this, and you head down into the town.
When he told me that there was a rival clockmaker, friendly rivalry in town, I've forgotten. Did he say whether they were based in Marmot, or is this a clockmaker who comes from somewhere else and sells in Marmot?
Based in Marmot. There's actually a shop here.
Okay. I'm going to ask Junior, do you know where that shop is?
He says, yes, I've been there many times.
Let's start there, unless something else catches our interest. I think starting with another clockmaker might be the way to go.
And he says, you actually don't see any you might expect to see from like a young man sort of resentment that you seem to be taking over the party. You actually don't see that from him. There's almost it's an odd combination of like relief and like, I want to see where this goes, and you seem to know, yes, let's, he just says, yeah, the guards look at him and yes, let's go there. And so,
and I understand hierarchies from being in Waterdeep and a noble person, so I think, yeah, she's trying to
position it in a like,
what do you think about?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Then I am very clearly being deferential to when the guards turn to him. I'm making sure that I am also looking at him for a yes, no. You know, I'm giving suggestions, but I'm letting him feel like, even if he's not taking the lead, that he is the deciding factor in this.
Yeah.
Because as long as he's still going along with me, I am happy for him to seem like he's in charge. If things take a turn, I got mage armor on. So. But for the moment, I think he's on the same page as me. We're going after the same thing, so I'm happy to play along with him being in charge.
Now, we're at about 2 hours, which is usually when I start to wrap things up. I don't think I can wrap this up in a couple of minutes. I think what I can probably do is leave it on sort of a cliff. To be very transparent with you, one of my campaigns is about to start an adventure. And the last 2 brunches that I've done have ended up building lore for that campaign. So part of me, so this goes deeper than like some of the shorter stories I've done. And I'm sorry that I did not wrap it up a little better, but that's why I don't have a wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta ask, is this a streamed campaign of yours, or is this a home campaign?
It's a streamed campaign.
Okay, so I love the idea of like fading out on this moment of the 2 of us and these 2 guards trotting into town of like, let's go figure this out. And then like at some, because what I'm sensing is that your campaign is going to end up in Marmot. And maybe maybe Kelbar has failed to figure things out, or maybe Kelbar is now stuck in this town, or maybe Kelbar is still there. I'll kind of leave that up to you, but I really like the idea of setting this up and then letting your campaign come along eventually and maybe encountering this or figuring this out or hearing about this in history, whatever makes sense for your campaign. I kind of like that a lot.
Yeah, okay. Great. So we'll leave it with that. You're about to head into this town. You're heading to the rival clockmaker. There's weird time thing. As you head into the town, it's more obvious and the pressure increases. And we'll say as you turn a corner and the clockmaker's shop is right there, all the pressure drops away as if you're in the eye of a storm. But as you're getting closer to this place, time reflects weirder and weirder, right? So you see like a dog chasing its tail, but instead of it, doing like a regular spin, it is going in slow motion, chasing its tail. You see a boy bouncing a ball against a wall, but it is happening so incredibly fast. You see a sunbeam go down through dust, and you can see the sunbeam lancing down. Not the whole sunbeam, but you see where it starts, and you see it start to come down. You see a woman folding laundry, like pulling it down off the... And it's almost like there's like a flicker, and then she's pulling the same shirt down. There's a flicker, and she's pulling the same shirt down. You also see another woman on the other end of the line. She's folding a shirt, and then it's like she unfolds it, and then she folds it, and then she unfolds it. And so you're seeing...
I think Kelbar...
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I think Kelbar is both annoyed, like, fascinated, and also there's a little bit of that, this is not natural. This, like, she recognizes this is bad, and this is not the way it should be, but she also can't help but be fascinated.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of...
Yep. Like...
Which, for a really tall, thin furball, probably looks really weird.
Ears going, yeah. Okay, so I think that's where we'll leave it, is you step out of the...
Yeah.
You step into the eye of the storm right in front of this shop, and everything looks disconcertingly normal. And I'll say, you look over your shoulder at that dog, and it looks like it's just chasing its tail like normal. From where you're standing.
Like, by entering the eye, we've walked through the effect, and now I'm seeing everything normally?
You think so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Tyler says, creepy.
Yeah.
And I hope Lauren can come back to finish the story. And then a grin. Meeps and peeps.
I kind of wonder, like,
I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
This might... I don't know what timing I have to come back. I would love to, or... The DM in me is really excited about the idea of, like, this is the setup, and then now your entire adventuring party comes walking in on this, and, like, handing Kelbar over to you as an NPC to do with as you will in this moment, depending on, like you're welcome to, and then crafting, this. I love this idea.
What I usually do with my brunches is I leave, most of the brunches I've had have been very far in the past, or past events, and then we see the effects of them in the upcoming, like in the arcs. So for example, in Broken Bane, they were riding a train that was developed by actually my first brunches. He was an air genasi, and he had such a huge effect on this part of the world that they're actually on a train that's sort of like this company he built. And so it's stuff kind of like that, and I have some ideas about what I'll do with what might happen in this clockwork shop.
Okay.
Meeps and Peeps says, thanks for a great game. I like a good cliffhanger. So yeah, cliffhangers can be fun. I actually find them obnoxious in one-shots when I myself am a player. They drive me up the wall. I was in one recently that a friend of mine wrote, and I was like, but what happens next? And they were like, meh. And I was like, I'm just going to make something up. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, that's half the... For me, like, I sometimes wish that they were ending, but, like, for me, half the fun of this, I think that... Let me try that sentence again, this time in order. The moments that I liked were those role-playing moments, and, like, those were, especially in the cart and with the sun, like, that was the important part. I feel like um like we had like this was book one of an adventure, and like, all right, if the son is actually the protagonist, I'm Gandalf. I've just wandered into his story
Mm-hmm.
and confirmed that no, everything you think that has been wrong and have been told has not been a thing. I've just told you, nope, you're right, and you've been seeing everything as it was, and now we're gonna go have this little adventure. Like, I'm perfectly happy to leave that as a cliffhanger, because I feel like in a weird way, I've just enabled his story.
Yeah, and that's what I like about these storytelling campaigns is I don't like I use the one shot tag on Twitch, but I don't really think of them as one shots. The way that I really sort of marketed these to myself back in the day was when I started these was really I'm building lore. So I've got a
Mm.
player who plays a lot of video games and stuff too, and he loves to yell the word lore whenever like a lore piece comes up, and that is in my head now whenever I and I specifically wanted to do a stream where I could build bits of lore into a Zinli. I just think that's so fun, and I've got 13 characters now that I can do stuff with. About 10 magical objects that I can sprinkle in the world. Actually, for my birthday last year, I yanked everybody out of their real story and dumped them into a place where I could give them magic spoons as a reward because spoon and
Aw.
magic
Yeah.
systems. And one of the streams I did for brunches explained where those came from
Oh.
because the person wanted to deal with like cooking implements, and I was like, "How do you feel about?
Let me present unto you spoons.
Would you like to be part of this lore? And they were like, yes. And so it was a lot of fun. So I that's another reason I'm okay with not resolving the stories is how do they really end 50 years later? Who knows? I don't know. What
Especially
effects
in
do they
this
have?
case where it,
Yeah.
yeah, especially in this case where it has something to do with time and time being manipulated. I know you're talking about, being far in the future, but if this town is stuck in time, maybe this was 50 years ago, but your players come along and they're coming into this moment, Maybe we pass through a barrier and the father and the rest of the guards have been gone for 50 years, but for us it's only been a few minutes.
Could be, yeah. Which I
Mm.
find really interesting about. I love playing with time and magic and like um, uh, worlds like planes. I love the idea of like just like pocket planes and stuff, and who knows what happens in there. I've done that a lot with Azynlia. It's a lot of fun.
So I admit something. I love that unless it involves backwards time travel. I'm a fan, like I like the idea of two planes of existence being at different rates of time.
Yeah,
I like the idea of like getting stuck.
yeah.
As long as everything is moving forward or frozen, but I'm personally, I think I think Kelbar would feel differently, but I personally
Mm-hmm.
am not a fan of time travel movies or like because of
Oh no, I'm
all of
not either.
the yeah, but
I think I think you
do.
are yeah on the same page about that. It's
Yeah.
the progression of time that I find interesting. Going back and changing things is a little yeah.
Well, and it's been fun for so one of my other characters has that I stream with, she's guested on a couple of shows,
Mhm.
and because of the differences in our like the show that she is on has been very loosey goosey, and like months will go by in between sessions,
Mhm.
and like she's lived for years and years and years over the course of a couple of episodes,
Mhm.
whereas this other game that she's shown up in is very much grounded in the reality of the day by day.
Mhm.
So the two times that I've guested, I'm talking about D4, which is a show that's on Sundays, and my character Orkira, who's on the Beyond. She's been on Beyond Heroes and Silver and Steel.
Mhm.
So I guested on their show and then went back to my own universe. And because we're hopping around in planes and time and all this other stuff is going on, it was like in game a week or two for them.
Mhm.
And then for my character, it'd been years. Like
Yeah.
it's been this. And so every time I show up, there's this time shift thing that I find really fascinating of like,
Yeah.
oh, the last time you saw me, it was like 3 weeks ago, but the last time I saw you was about a decade.
Yeah.
And like that I find fascinating.
I do that kind of stuff all the time. The campaign I run on Tuesdays that I stream, I built with a core set of humans involved at the beginning, and they worked at conventions at the time, and so the likelihood of them being able to show up, I like to play every week for consistency, and the likelihood of them being able to show up every single week was slim to none. And so what I did is I built in a mechanic. There's this Fae being of some kind that likes to mess with my players. And so what I would do is when they weren't available, we'd still play. And I would say, there's a weird noise. And so and so and so and so disappears. And then whenever they'd come back, they'd have either soft memories or like no memory or like weird memories about the progression of time. Usually they gone for like a second. And I've done other weird things like that. Like there's this interesting character that kidnapped a party to put them up against their mechanized war robots. Like one of them exploded and dealt like 94 damage to the whole party. They're based on Overwatch characters.
Yeah.
So they were mean. And then she reset time. She was like, okay, we're going to try that again. You're not dead. And so, like, there's a lot of weird, timey-wimey type mechanics that I find very interesting. And it's like, did she rewind time, or is that now, did she reset the plane, right? Did they actually die? Are they just laying on their back somewhere and imagining all of this? Like, what's happening? Those are the kinds of things that I find really entertaining. And I've used the mechanic. We had somebody in Broken Bane isn't able to make it every single week, so they've dropped out for a little while, right? They could come back. They will come back, right? What will they have done in the time they've been gone? Same thing with Treasure Tuesday. We had somebody drop out, might come back in the future. What will they have done? They left on a dragon to find more dragons. Like, who knows, you know? And so I really love messing with time. I think it's a great deal of fun.
And when you have the chance to leave on a dragon, I mean, yes.
Who would not do that? Like, and the dragon needed his help?
Lauren, absolutely. Put me on the back of Falcor. Let's go.
Kelbar, no?
I do have a character. Kelbar, maybe. Kelbar might be a little more cautious. Orkira, no. Orkira hates dragons.
Got it. All right.
She's a dragonborn with that history of dragons are bleep holes. And so that's every once in a while we encounter a dragon, and Lauren is like, and then I have to go, I hate dragons.
I hate dragons. Yeah. No, they suck. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
we've totally gone off topic.
I know.
This is so much fun.
I know, Lord. I feel like I could just talk to you about this kind of thing forever. I really appreciate it. I think we did come to a good place to stop.
Absolutely.
I think it's clear that we could spin off into a bunch of different realms if we had more, endless time and endless amounts of energy. But why don't we go ahead and let's do a wrap up. So what I usually do is I ask my guests to share if there's anywhere they can be found on the internet, like other streams that you're in or other things you'd like to share with them about you. Is there anything like that? Like you mentioned a couple of streams just now.
I did. So I am the community manager for D&D Beyond.
Yes.
And you can often find me on D&D Beyond streams. At the moment, besides some of our educational and informative streams that are every week, we do have a live play show, which is Silver and Steel. However, this Tuesday is our final episode, which is sad.
Oh, no.
So that show is coming to an end. There are other places I'm going to be showing up with other characters, including the Dragonborn that I just talked about. I can't talk about any of that yet. So the best place to, we're all in that NDA life. But the best place to keep up with me with all of that is on Twitter. I'm Obo Lauren. You can follow me there. And that's usually where I announce any fun things that I am hanging out and playing with and doing things. So follow me there. And otherwise, you can find me all over the internet trying to hang out with as many D&D people as possible.
Yeah. Great. So for me, I have had that headache for the last week, so I haven't been able to stream. But theoretically, our next stream will be Tuesday for Treasure Tuesday. That group has gotten into an interesting spot where they're not sure where they're going. One of the characters was like, I don't want to go back to that town. And they were like, cool. And they went back to that town. So like, there's a lot of feelings involved in this right now. And then haven't been able to put another Dungeons and Doggos together, but I'm trying, y'all. And then Saturday will be our next Broken Bane. That's the group that is investigating a weird cave system where no one comes back, but the town needs them to go in there to find some tools to fix their weird magic looms that they think came from there. It's very strange. They're very obsessed right now with the idea that there seem to be all kinds of multiples in the town. There's twos and there's twins and triplets, and they're like, what is this? So I'm finding it highly entertaining. So yeah, that's where you
Nice.
can find me. And of course, like Seven Spoon on Twitter, or Twitch, yeah, Twitter, both places. You can find me like Seven Spoon on Twitter or Twitch. And yeah, happy to chat with all of you. And if anybody needs anything, ping me on Twitter. But other than that, I think we're gonna say goodbye. Stream. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
Anytime. I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised when you said yes, and I was like, oh my god, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this. I was very excited. I ran through the house, or limped through the house, and was like, Aaron, to my husband, and he was.
Well, I've been excited about this, and this was super fun, and thank you for having me.
Anytime. If you ever want to come on again, let me know. Same character, different character. Doesn't matter. All right. So, stream, we're going to say goodbye. I recommend you all hop over to Rosie Games in 15 minutes. I was going to raid if we went that long, but instead I'll just tell you all to go over there. She's going to make angel food cake. She's the only reason I know how to bake in Colorado, so check that out. All right.
Nice.
Other than that, stream, we're going to say goodbye. Bye, stream.
Nice.